Welcome to the East End Education Forum. Today's discussion will be about learning in the community, the value of internships. Our guests are Tim Fromm, the Assistant Superintendent of East Hampton Schools, Skye Tasman, the student intern and senior at East Hampton High School, and Nick Cooper, also a student intern and junior at East Hampton High School. And I'm your host, Bob Tymann. So, Nick and Skye, you can both give your opinions on this, but what prompted you to apply for the internship that you had this summer?
Should I start?
Yeah, got
Sure.
it.
So there's a methods and research program at our school. It's a 3-year-long science research-based course. And I was studying mussels as a mitigation measure against eutrophication, which is when excess nitrogen and phosphorus go into a water system and algal blooms occur as a result. It's very bad for the environment.
Okay, now can you put that into layman's terms, so everybody knows how important that, because that's a huge topic, but only people who knew science.
Sure.
So,
So septic systems that are faulty release bad stuff into the water, and mussels, which are filter feeders, which means they filter in the water as they feed, can be used to take out the pollutants of that water. And so I was researching that, and then Dr. Robito, our teacher, mentioned this opportunity at the East Hampton Shellfish Hatchery, and I figured oysters, mussels, bivalves, so they go hand in hand.
and Nick, how about you?
So this is Skye's second year. This will be her third year in the methods program. It was my first year before I did the internship, and I really looked into oyster reefs specifically and how they create new habitats for other species. I definitely wasn't in as much in depth as you were, but I spoke to Dr. Robito, my teacher, and Miss McGuire, another teacher, and they set me up with you, Bob, which was great because now I have this great opportunity to do this internship with you and research more with oyster reefs and creating habitats and, how they protect erosion and other positive effects.
And just so everybody knows, I am also one of the Southwark Sea Farmers who sponsor the internship, so we've been working together all summer. So some things we say wouldn't make sense to people.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, Tim, how is the process of a student applying for an internship? How involved is it?
And there's so many different layers. I mean, these are two very talented students, and they have the internship as part of an extension to one of their academic courses. And, that's obviously, one of the easier transitions is these students and students like them are looking for these opportunities to grow and expand. And, when you say internships, we could be looking, on the other end of the spectrum where, a job to work type of situation, maybe a culinary internship and the like. But, we always want our kids to be able to touch and feel and study in environments that are not necessarily in the four walls and with desks in front of them. So this is a wonderful opportunity, and you're taking, with the oyster farming that has been going on out here, this works perfectly for their project, and using that as a launching pad for other internships and types and, diverse learners, different styles and, and accomplished learners is always a goal for us to expand upon,
Yeah. Now, this internship is a paid internship, and I don't know how often they're paid internships. Is that common, or?
It varies because we're in a seasonal economy. They're doing a little job work this summer where they could be these two particular students. You have the academic piece of it, and you also have a little bit of summer work to it. But we have some of our culinary students working in restaurants in that capacity. So they're both interning, but they're also, hoping, to learn the trade and learn a little, as well as earn a little. So, that works out brilliantly. Year to year, and the pandemic certainly put us in a pause moment where students were just shadowing, professions and professionals, opening up doors for future opportunities, whether shadowing in medical offices, and we had some folks over the years work in, the Amagansett boat building shop. Those opportunities both are unpaid shadowing, learning experiences, to ranging for what you two are doing, where you both get to, further your projects, your research, perhaps something you continue to pursue in your academic, careers, but also, pay you a little to divert your summer energies,
Yeah, getting paid to learn isn't a bad thing.
We always balance that there's a fine line between reward and as an incentive and the self-motivation. So
I do know that, I know at least Sky said specifically that you would have been doing this without the paycheck. It didn't really matter.
Yeah, me as well.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I-
It's about the learning experience over the money for sure.
So how is this different from learning in your classroom?
I've learned about myself comparing this to the classroom. There's something about being in an outdoor environment, one, but I feel like I absorb material way more when I'm doing, which is why back at school I prefer science lab periods when we're messing with instruments rather than just taking notes on the board. But just being surrounded by our amazing ecosystem out here is motivating in itself, but it's great to learn like the intricacies of what happens beneath the surface.
Yeah.
Nick, how about you?
I definitely agree with that. Like, it's just so different. Being in school, it's like you're sitting in front of a board, writing answers to questions, or just talking with peers. And when I do this internship, I'm just learning in a different way, I guess. Instead of really memorizing facts or formulas or using math, like you're out in your environment, the environment you want to work in, and you're making a change. We're building these oyster reefs to help our community, and I think there's a lot to be said about that. Like, it's a very important thing that people not just learn, but actually apply what they learn and get out into the real world and help the world be a better place.
A lot of research on learning says that adults, children, everybody, the way we learn is we have to have some control over the path of that learning. And the learning will be much deeper if it's a real situation. Do you think that comes into play here? This is all real.
Mm-hmm.
This is you're dealing with New York State laws. You're dealing with a presentation to the trustees. It's not, you're not going to get a grade for it. They're either going to say yes or no to you.
Mm-hmm. I think the real aspect makes it much more exciting. And you learn about things that you're not expecting to learn about, which I think makes it even more intriguing, because I figured, this is going to be very science-based. I'm going to learn about bivalves, how they feed, how they grow, at what rates, etc. But never would I have imagined that I'm learning how legal paperwork works, how the trustees at the town manage their business, where they even are located. I had no idea, but
Yeah, even like writing an email, like doing the simplest stuff that you wouldn't think is hard. When you come to an internship and you have to communicate with other people, and especially people who are experts in that field, you have to definitely learn some new social skills that you would not learn in a classroom, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Expand on that, because those, what they call soft skills, in my opinion, could be the most important skills to help you succeed, whether you're going to college or career. Those soft skills are incredibly important, yet we can't test them, so they're not highlighted in schools. And that's a whole state problem, which we can get into another time. But talk about those soft skills.
Definitely. I've grown to be more comfortable with talking to new people, especially people not my age. Nick and I went to the Sea Farmer Oyster
It was
fundraiser.
it was a fundraiser.
And I was very nervous at first. I was glad to have Nick with me.
Mm-hmm.
But there was 300 people that were, 20, 30, 40. And we were there to share information and raise awareness. And I was definitely nervous, putting myself out there, starting the conversation, telling them what we do. But because of that, I think I've definitely grown to be more personable and learn how to make a conversation with someone.
Mm-hmm. And even meeting those new people like that often have a lot of connections, and they can help you in other ways than what you expect. For example, I spoke to a man who was interested in our oyster reef presentation that we gave, and he spoke to me, and he was interested in me continuing doing research through college, and he was asking me a lot about like what I'd be doing in the future with this, because it is something that I would want to continue through the years.
Definitely prepared me more for college, because
Yeah.
I think out there, like, we are very sheltered out here, and definitely put me out there on the spot.
Before I forget, I'd like to thank you for stopping at 40 when you were saying how old everybody was
Oh.
there. I appreciate that. Do you want to continue with this internship through the school year?
Definitely. Probably, hopefully we can speak for the both of us. I know Nick has a lot going on
Yeah,
himself.
we're both pretty busy.
Well, you're a
But
junior, and it's a tough year.
Yeah.
As we
For sure,
talked
good
about.
luck. I definitely want to continue monitoring, maintaining the reef myself. Currently, I'm speaking with my mentor, who I've established through the research program at the high school, about what exactly I would be collecting data on. And right now I'm figuring temperature, pH, and then solute concentrations in the water, which in layman's terms is the amount of particles floating in the water column.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm also I'm interested in continuing this through the year. It's a great opportunity. And even though we do have to create like new projects every year for this course, so I can't just say, oh, I'm doing the internship for my whole 2 years. I'm starting to make this thing called a Habitat Suitability Index, which is a model where you collect data in a certain area. So for us, it would be the harbor where we're putting our oyster reefs, and you put it into a software, and out comes basically a sheet of paper that shows you where the best and the worst locations are to put an oyster reef. So I've been communicating with my mentor about that, but of course, working at the internship, we're always kayaking around in this harbor. I'm getting experience using bags, building these oyster reefs, so it's definitely going to make the process a lot easier for me.
And you've gotten your hands cut a couple of times.
Yes.
Now, for someone like Nick, who's got a junior year, which is a packed year, how can we make it easier to fit in something? I think you would agree this is a valuable educational experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So how do we make it more doable? I mean, because the schedule is the high school schedule is tough to build, it's tough to maintain, and it rarely, especially in junior year, leaves space.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a slippery slope. These are two very accomplished students who are looking at both, their projects they enjoy and are part of their coursework, but also, to the future and the competitiveness of, what one's transcript will look like from an academic world. There literally are 24 hours in the day. I mean, I was thinking maybe Nick and Sky can start at 6 in the morning, and no, I'm just kidding. But as growing adults, they do need to have that balance, and I can only take so many courses and do so many things at a time. And if their involvement in athletics and extracurriculars, whether it's theater or just clubs and the like, there's a balance there. And my days at the high school as an admin there, always a struggle to see students try to do everything and overload themselves, because that's not a healthy environment either. And as a parent of teenagers as well, and students at the high school and finishing the middle school area, I constantly have to remind them, you can't do it all. What is motivating you? And the two of you seem motivated by these projects, and that motivation, I think, allows them, and correct me if I'm wrong, to make that trade-off. So because your involvement in the science programs and the research, and hopefully this is something you believe is opening up a bigger pathway for your connections with your mentors, I think it allows you to perhaps make that trade-off in some other area of opportunity at the school. Is that something you've had to weigh on? Maybe I won't take this advanced class in this subject area because I'm more science-minded, versus, or maybe I will pull back from another area, and I don't want to put anyone on one area versus the other. Is that a choice that you two have had to weigh in on, at least? And
Yeah, definitely. I love the sciences and the maths. Those are my favorite subjects in high school. So Of course,
And I was a history major, so do not, say you turned off. No, I'm kidding, but maybe that's an opportunity that you had to, weigh one against the other on.
Yeah, I know a lot of my friends this year who aren't even taking lunch, trying to fit in as much as they can in the schedule. I was like, I need a break, I need lunch, and I'm definitely willing to make like a trade-off for my time to do this internship because it's really worthwhile to me. And not only like, of course, it aligns with my interests for the future, but I'm genuinely like happy when I'm there. I'm like happy to take part in it and do this work, and it feels good to do something for the community.
I think a lot of high achieving students try to cram their schedule with everything just to make that transcript look beautiful, which I myself am guilty of. But there definitely needs to be a balance because it's easy to get overwhelmed. Because I'm science-based, I've made the choice to focus most of my electives on the sciences. And I think the trade-off there is definitely positive because I'm doing what I like. So I would advise students who want to do an internship, do what you want or do what you think you're passionate about rather than what will look good. Because I think students who show passion, their college admissions, whoever they're trying to impress, will recognize that passion.
And over the years, Bob and I have talked about these opportunities for internships. I mean, the two of you are accomplished students in your own right, and you deserve that praise. And you're looking at a higher academic pathways in the immediate sense. I mean, there are other internships that we've been encouraging students to take that in the culinary and in the trades and the like. And those two open, I think, great doors for students and hoping that we don't, give off the impression that only academic, internships, go in these directions because, it's a wonderful opportunity to, to put people in trade positions and opening those, we love to see our students enter into the electric, the culinary, the plumbing, and that balance. I mean, what recommendations might you have for some students in a different type of internship world, not necessarily science or that we could take back to our audiences?
I think what helped me find an internship really was reaching out to like the teachers in the school.
Right.
So whatever field you're interested in, be it math or even English, history, anything, speak to teachers that teachers that you like, and teachers in your field area. And they seem to always be very, very willing to help. I know Dr. Rabito is extremely helpful to both of us all the time, and very willing to set us up with people and give us like these opportunities like this internship.
The teachers at the high school are incredibly accommodating, and they will support any student, no matter what they're interested in. So in terms of students who want to go into the trade schools, plumbing, electricity, I don't know what it's called. I would recommend for them just put themselves out there, because I can imagine you can only guess at what it's going to be like so much. But once you put yourself in that situation, that's when you get the real, this is what, if I go down this path, this is what it's going to be like for me.
It definitely gives us a good idea of what's going to come in the future.
Definitely.
If we're interested in this research, but we really had no idea what it was going to look like until we came and actually did this internship, which is very helpful for us.
I think even choosing an internship that you think is your career, that let's say, an electrician, and studying with an electrician for a semester, you might find out that you don't like it at all. That's also valuable.
Definitely.
Before you dive in with both feet, finding out, no, that isn't as much fun as I thought it was going to be, and maybe I should try something different. Great learning.
Yeah, just because you didn't like what you did doesn't mean it wasn't helpful in some way.
Correct, absolutely.
Yeah, the experiential piece of it is, of an internship or in learning is all too often, sad to say, the elusive target. Is as often as folks of all age can touch and feel and try something new, the more likely they are to hone in on that skill. And we've been fortunate to put some students through the Career Cafe that brings a lot of local professionals in to share a little bit of their business and what they do. Unfortunately, that was tempered with the pandemic and and the like. But we were really gaining some traction a couple of years of putting the job shadowing day in place, where students were able to get a sample size of different professions, the hands-on trades, office life, some of your more intensive internships. And do you feel that those are something we as educators should really push on students now, having spent most of the summer in this position, in these internships?
I know Miss Tyree is the one
Yes,
that
she's done a
organizes-
fantastic job of making connections through the Career Cafe and the internships and finding opportunities, and we've been able to really take a handful of them to another level. And the momentum was halted, ever so slightly with the pandemic, and we're hoping to take like your experience and your science one and use them to reach more and more students. Do you believe that will translate to the enthusiasm you two have in your current program?
Yeah, so the business advisory board that Miss Tyree
Yeah.
runs helps with like the job shadowing and everything like that. Cafe. I've heard great things about students who shadow a doctor for a day, but it's only one day, and you can only do so much in a day. So I think that's great that we have that as an opportunity, but definitely I would encourage students to, if you really like that one day, keep
Seize it.
going with it. And I'm sure the people that Ms. Tyree's made connections with, who she refers the students to, I would think would be more than welcoming to longer periods of time.
Yeah, I can definitely personally relate to, I have interests in high school, but I have no idea what I want to do as a job in 10 years.
And you shouldn't yet.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
But
I
I'm
think
sure-
I'm still working on it.
But I'm sure doing job shadowing in this internship is helping me definitely hone my skills and definitely hone in on something I'm specifically interested in to create a specific future for myself.
Right.
So, with your internship, okay, if you were going to talk to your friends about why should they do it, and we're not talking about an internship with the South Fork Sea Farmers, not in science, but an internship in general, what would you tell your friends is the reason to choose a path and try it in an internship setting rather than classroom?
So first, what I would tell them is it looks great on your college resume, because I'm sure that's a great hook for them. Everyone cares about getting into the best college they can, and obviously doing internships and participating in extracurriculars looks great. But hopefully from there, if they ever actually participate in an internship, it would show them how meaningful it can be to do these projects like this, and how helpful internships can be in honing your skills in and doing something you love, really. So I think that would help them a lot.
That's definitely a motivator. But in terms of other students who might not want to go to college, who have a different path after high school, one of the major pluses this internship has gotten me is the community that I'm now involved with. So I definitely tell my friends, not only are you doing an internship, but you're making new friends, meeting new people. For example, I had no idea that the hatchery was really even there beforehand, and the amount of people that just go there to take care of their own oyster cages, the employees there, they're very passionate about what they do, and it's inspiring to meet people who are like-minded as you are.
Yeah.
How young do you think our school system should be introducing students to careers and job shadowing and things along those lines? When do you think you were ready for that?
That's a very tricky question.
And there's no right answer, so you're okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Freshmen are very impressionable, but they're very they're dreamers, which I think
Way back when.
way back when, yeah. Talking about the old days. So even then, because they're already in a brand new atmosphere, I think you could sprinkle a little bit here and there about talking about the future. Definitely you don't want to overwhelm them, because I remember I was very nervous as a freshman. First day of school, wow, geez. But I think freshman year, just to get them started so it's not, oh my gosh, junior year, I need to start getting extracurriculars under my belt.
I would say even younger. I mean, I was in kindergarten and I was like, oh, what do I want to be in the future? A doctor or like a policeman.
Right.
So even like at that age, I guess the school does introduce the idea of jobs to
I think
kids
we,
like that.
yeah, I think probably in the elementary grades, we do go through that, visit the firehouse, visit the police
Yeah.
station. But it could be broader.
I remember the dentist used to come and like show us how to brush our teeth on like the stuffed animal. Yeah.
The day after Halloween, right? When they're collecting all of their candy, right? Sure.
So, again, going back to traditional school and the structure, the internships don't have weight as far as credits for graduation. Is that still true?
There are opportunities to provide internships and alternative credits. But, I agree. It's difficult to do that in a very broad level. So, your internship is really, attached to a course, and that gives you all that piece of your course requirements. So it is a little slippery in terms of how we do that. We've definitely played with and offered independent study courses, in the fields, of language, and for students that are interested in taking on the challenge of different language. And I think those opportunities exist. It's finding the right partnership as well as a fair metric that is applied to who's doing the internship as the provider of the internship, and
Right.
that's people running businesses and doing their day-to-day chores, and balancing that with the students, and again the difficult schedule that kids have, getting them to the places if it's a hands-on internship. It has definitely put a little bit of a wrinkle in how we can do this unless the parents are completely available.
Yeah, because the state still has seat time.
Yeah.
Okay, which is an archaic, and I can say this because I'm not employed anymore.
Yeah.
But it's you
I'll
can't
just
get
plead
a
the
credit.
fifth on this.
Yeah,
right?
you can plead the fifth, but you have to sit in a classroom for X amount of minutes
Right.
to get credit for that course, regardless of whether you knew everything before you got to that room,
Right.
or whether you learned anything you were in that room. Okay, seat time is still a requirement, and this idea of internships kind of flies in the face of that.
It almost comes off as more of extracurricular versus, in the traditional day, or it comes off as pure volunteerism.
Yes. Yes.
And you two are certainly lucky that the community has this hatchery and that is looking for able-bodied hands as well as competent hands.
Right.
And it's definitely a slippery slope. We, again, another situation, kind of piggybacking that is, the state and has offered a lot of opportunities via BOCES type programs, but we're blessed and cursed to live on this side of the Shinnecock Canal, and in your days at the school, we've worked hand in hand to find different opportunities to kind of get as much experiential education out there. It does work easier for the highly motivated students with the coursework attached to them, but I'm really proud that we were open to begin the process with an expansion of a culinary program at the school. So the introductory programs are now leading into more detailed and in-depth culinary opportunities, and we just recently cut the ribbon on a bus garage depot, and unfortunately it took a little longer to finish with the pandemic and the like, so we're hoping that we can get the education space opened in addition to just the bus space as
Right,
soon
I
as
don't know if
January.
everybody
Fingers crossed
knows.
on that.
Yeah.
But those are other opportunities that are both hands-on and internship capable programs, and they're just the tip of the iceberg. BOCES has a fantastic program that the state has sponsored for years, but back to the
2 hours away.
it's beautiful working in aquaculture and in the East End, but not maybe as so when you're living in the middle of upstate New York. But it's definitely a challenge, and I think most folks on the East End know that there is, unfortunately, a certain trade-off for to be blessed in the community surroundings that we have.
And I don't know if everybody's aware that in the new bus barn there is a class
designated space that is virtually set up, but literally, not virtually. I don't want to confuse any virtual in this post-pandemic world, but it is being set up to bring in mechanic repair teachings, small mechanic and ideally automotive in the very near future. And
Yeah. And again, people have to realize the hardest part of getting that program together is not the money or the nuts and bolts of getting all the equipment, it's finding teachers.
Yeah, and
being able
that
to
fine
staff
line
them
that New
properly.
York State has, and of putting. Obviously, we want the best and most qualified peoples around and educated, to folks who are able to provide a teachable environment, not just internal knowledge. I mean, and you had great success, working with our computer programming and working with the state for alternative teaching license, and that's paved a nice pathway for us to do so with our culinary program and piggyback that, so we can find some local professionals in the small mechanics and the marine automotive programming that I think can find an opportunity to share their trade and grow it. And hoping we can do the same with the plumbing and electric in the near future, and but always with the best interest of doing it properly.
Right, bringing in a master mechanic in any of those trades is hard to find.
Yeah.
We've got to entice them to leave their trade almost because it's time consuming. And then there's
Or moonlight, which again,
Right.
like these two, there's only so much time in the day, and that's definitely an incentive. And I think to your original question, New York State has certain limitations.
Right.
Professionals with an abundance of knowledge, because they have not gone through a traditional teacher preparatory program, are not allowed to be master teachers. So they have the state, and we've worked with regional assistant superintendents and superintendents for both these programs who are advocating for change and loosening up of these standards. And I'm an eternal optimist, and I believe it is happening, but it can be a little slow.
Nothing in education happens quickly. It's painfully slow, although I do agree moving in the right direction.
It is, and I think there's wonderful opportunities. And this is a fantastic community that wants to support a lot of these hands-on experiential education, not just for the course in the high academics, but for all. And the opportunities are getting more and more abundant. But yes, it does take a lot.
We are incredibly blessed in that we have the funding to do it. We're capable of getting the structure together. It still leaves the state regulations as a hurdle and finding the right people, which is difficult, but doable. Again, we were successful with the computer program.
We moved the needle a bit,
Yeah.
and it's not being moved rapidly, as fast as I think we'd all like it to, and our efforts are there, and I do think we the momentum is growing in our favor. Certainly, and I think I do give the state credit. I'd like them to move a little faster, but for looking at wonderful regions like ours who are somewhat isolated, and they deal with that a lot in the upstate areas.
Yeah,
It's
they're very
everyone agrees. The more time a student is on a bus to receive an education is time lost in the classroom.
Yeah.
And the more time in the hands-on field, like the two of you, the more you are to connect with like-minded people, find a passion, and be all successful, productive humans as you grow up.
I also think, our high academic achievers and getting internships like this, they're exciting, they're fun, and schools will highlight them,
Yeah.
But I feel it's even more important for a student who was never that engaged in school, never saw school linked to their future, to say, oh, we have other pathways. It's not all about getting to college, and there are multiple pathways, and giving them the opportunity to shine in the ways that they outshine everybody else. And I was more one of those kids than, honestly, I was never anywhere near as great a student as you guys are. I was more, my guidance counselor said, go do something with your hands.
Yeah.
And after high school I did. I was a carpenter for many years. but I was not I didn't see high school or school in general as helping me on a path towards my future. They weren't connected. And I think if we can provide more opportunities for kids who feel like they're non-academic or who we've pushed into, you're not that good at this, being a student or
Yeah.
good at school, this opportunity makes school important for their futures also. And then I think we would get more engagement in, you know what, I have to learn to read on a high level to read the manual that goes with this electrical degree, because a lot of people would struggle mightily with the manuals that come with many of these trades. Even to understand how to weld. It's not, okay, I have to hold everything properly. There's a
And that
ton
connection,
of
and the
math.
connection to content or profession. Once that's there, I mean, you're working with muscles and bivalves, and that's something you're passionate about. And regardless of that, for those who are in the culinary world, the connection to the food, or a number of our students, are, former students of mine at least, are working here at LTV, and we have had some partnerships with LTV for internships, and that is wonderful to see that, again, some of my students are back in this town, and they're working in the, in this forum, getting them to work in the culinary worlds, and in insurance worlds, and in the culinary carpentry and the like. That's what we need to get into.
Yes.
We need to get into hands-on and something that is going to make so-and-so passionate. When Nick is passionate about oysters, Nick's going to be passionate about oysters forever.
Right.
I mean, it may be a West Coast oyster, it may be an East Coast oyster, and he may at one point delineate between the salination and a Robbins Island oysters while he's eating them, versus a West Coast oyster. But that's going to be a passion of his, and the more we can create passions in students, the more we will all be, reaping the rewards of, better, technologies, improved construction. That's what we have to do.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that certain students should only learn a trade. I think that through the trade, they're going to get all the academic skills. I mean, there's math, and science, it's all involved, but it needs purpose, individual purpose to that student. Not just because it's on a test, not just because we said so.
Our carpenters know geometry better than some of our high-performing students, and
time I used
once
the
they
Pythagorean
connect to that,
theorem,
and
right.
some of my friends who are in the trades, they understand geometry, and I have my bachelor's degree, I have my master's, postmaster's, and geometry is something I got through. I'm not passionate about it, but some of my friends who did not follow academic paths that I have, they know geometry right and left, and because it's their fields. And in the bivalve world, you may not be using your geometry as often, but I would guarantee you were fairly successful in the classroom of geometry.
No, it's a great point, because some students, even great friends of mine, just see a disconnect between school and the real world. Like, when am I going to use y equals mx plus b when
Sure.
I'm working?
You lost
a 9
me
to
at
5?
Y, but go ahead.
No, it makes perfect sense, and I think internships where kids it's blatantly laid out in front of them. This is a future job that I could partake in. Why not experience it now? It will definitely incite passion and interest towards learning, which I think sometimes is unfortunately not there in a classroom.
That connection is if we can that, bottle it, we'd all be on more stages like this, because it's really tough. And I was before I moved into school administration, I was a history teacher, and inevitably got, why do we need to know this? And some of those students are now of the, wow, I remember that, and it makes me happy that I run across them and they tell me that, and sometimes I'm like, he didn't want to know this, but those connections are what kind of makes each and every one of us want to learn and Google this or that for gosh knows what reasons. So
Right. Well, then getting to Google, a lot of what especially when I was in school, when we were in school,
Sure.
a lot of what...
Just to be clear, he was in school a little before me, and I was a little after
a year
you.
or two. We were taught stuff, lots and lots of facts, and especially in social studies. I taught social studies also, and bio. Both of them were.
Stuff.
If you could memorize a whole bunch of stuff, and if you knew the definitions,
You knew it.
you were smart,
Yeah.
and you got a good grade. And it was nothing about what do you do with that information.
Sure.
But now all of that is on your phone. You don't need to memorize any of that stuff anymore. It's on your phone, and the real question is, what can you do with it? And so school, I hope school is in the middle of a shift, even in the traditional classrooms, to where it's not about the stuff, but what can we do with it? What can we create? How can we problem solve? And I think that internships allow that type of learning. Your problem solving. I don't think I've ever asked you a multiple choice question on the internship, right? They haven't come up.
I don't think so.
Thank God.
But I have thrown stuff in your laps and kind of said, figure that out.
And yet both of you are probably considering sitting for your standardized tests, and it still exists, and I couldn't agree,
Yes.
Bob. You know, there's that fine line between knowing stuff as in like an ABC, D checkoff box, and being able to touch it and manipulate it and grow from there.
And I'm actually a proponent of standardized tests. They're necessary. I believe they're necessary. But I don't think the tests we give now give the insight into whether students are.
They're snapshots.
They're-
On a good day, they're snapshots. Sure.
And they're also, they're mostly multiple choice, not because that tells you a lot about the student, but because it's easy to grade.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
And to do a test, an
Why
assessment.
are the SATs take so long to get the scores back then? No, I'm kidding.
There are a few little, but the extended response is where you really have to show who you are, what you've learned and what you can do with your knowledge. But that's hard to grade. That's why it takes longer to
And
grade.
those extended response, I think is a nice segue to those interpersonal skills you get at the internship. You get to talk and discuss with people. Now it's not in a 5-paragraph essay format, but it does present itself. And I think one of you alluded to an email or two that you've had to communicate with your mentors and the like. That's a different skill from that does require a little bit of
just
touch and go experience.
having the real life pressure of saying, okay, this is going to be read by somebody who, in the pathway to my future, is important.
Right.
And that's a different feeling than Mr. Abito. Okay? Which, not that he's not important, but I figured I'd throw his name out there. But-
Yeah, I mean, and those are also experiences, because I've received and probably been on the sending end of an email or two that if you read it quickly, you're like, he or she is mad at me, or vice versa. And I'm like, maybe I'm going to pick up the phone to just say, that was just an email. Or if you send a text and did that come off as snotty or so? But those experiences, I think, through the internships, give you that pause to say, I didn't mean it like that, but it could be received that way.
Right.
And the extended responses, as we were circling back to, they do offer those opportunities to get into someone's thought process, and that's a super important and wonderful reflection of what we really, really understand.
Like, I know some of the AP exams have started to shift, where there's not as much multiple choice, more what can you tell me about this?
And I hope that we see a lot of that kind of as a result, the shifts that is, to this experiential learning and experiential reflection, whether it's in an exam type format, and I'm hopeful that when we really are able to say the pandemic is behind us, that some of this has kind of led to we've learned a lot, and it can be demonstrated in different ways, and finding that fine line of being able to do so accurately and fairly across boards, will be that, and I think that's what we were alluding to. That I think the AP, started that, and I don't swear by the AP as the end all and be all, but
not at all. Not at all.
there's a value to an extent in their metric. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and I hate to say this about education in general, but if we don't shift the tests, we can't expect teachers to shift their teaching, because we, the administrators, have held them accountable by test scores, which
And
is,
that's like
wrong.
growing oysters.
Yeah.
Were you successful? Yes, there are a lot of oysters. No, I was not.
yeah.
And just a crazy question. Opening oysters.
Yes.
That's a skill unto itself.
That is a skill. And I don't think you guys have tried
You
that
haven't
yet.
wrapped around that skill set quite yet.
Well, Sky ate her first oyster.
Yes, I did.
Ah.
So I have been a little afraid of trying. I mean, they are kind of intimidating. They're not really much like anything else we eat. But I figured I'm passionate about the environmental side. I'll try the culinary side, and I did, and they're not too
But there's
bad.
an entire knife to open an oyster,
Yeah.
whereas there's a clam knife,
Yep.
and then we can go one step further. There's also a scallop knife. I mean, and folks find out that you are capable of opening oysters and clams and the like, you can get roped into, some very dirty situations very quickly, because you may be a rare commodity on that, in that field unto itself.
Well, for me, when I'm at a party and having something to do, or because I'm not a real great social person at a party, having something to do like that, and I get to meet everybody, because they all come over and have an oyster, that's a safe place for me. So that skill helps me in that area.
I can open oysters and clams, fairly successfully. Scallops is another story, but I've been stuck opening oysters and clams in situations where I wanted to be that social person, and now I'm, without my apron and the like. So,
I'm curious, out of your experience so far this summer, the internship, what's been the most memorable thing you did? What Nick, I'll let you go first.
Okay, I think me and Sky might have the same answer, but we participated, we've already said this, we participated in a fundraiser for the South Fork Sea Farmers, and it doubled as us doing a presentation of what we're going to be building, the oyster reefs we're going to be building in Accabonac Harbor, and we had to give a presentation to a lot of people at an event, and it was so memorable for so many reasons. It's just, we got to see the aspect of us presenting, presentational skills, the aspect of us creating the poster that we're going to be giving, and getting that knowledge of where we're going to be building the oyster reefs, what the bags are made of that the oysters are even going into, and then the social aspect of us trying to mingle around with the people there.
That was definitely the most challenging.
Yeah, that might have been the most challenging. And Sky having her first oyster.
Yes. Pretty
Um,
memorable.
So definitely we
one?
just covered
Just
a lot
one.
of bases.
Now, and you did notice that I signed you up for another presentation with the Accabonac Preservation.
Yes,
Okay.
I saw
did see that email chain,
Yes.
which we also learned to check our emails very regularly.
Yeah.
Ready
That's
for the
another skill.
professional world.
Yeah.
Most memorable part of the internship, that was definitely one of them. A few bits and pieces of when we're taking care of the spout on shell. We get a few cuts here and there.
Yeah.
Nick,
most of the time.
but
Maybe that's how you got that name.
oh yeah, Nick in the finger.
Nick my finger.
Maybe. But yeah, I think it's overall a good time.
Yeah.
Learning a lot.
And so, I mean, what the big takeaway from this is learning can be a good time, because I do believe you're learning a lot during the internship. I hope you guys agree, but it's also fun. I mean, I honestly, this is a volunteer thing for me. I enjoy it. I look forward to us paddling around trying to find a spot for an oyster reef. It was a fun day.
It doesn't feel the same as, oh, I've got to go to work now. It's more like I look forward to it. It's quite fun. I mean, granted, we are very lucky. I feel like our internship is probably an anomaly, considering we spend a lot of our time out on the water kayaking around. But if you think about it, the one internship that we get a chance at, it's this good. I'm sure other internships have just as great.
Well, think about it. If we had 100 students, juniors and seniors here, and we said, how many want to have an internship with oysters? Not a big group is saying yes,
Got a
right?
few
This
kids,
is
maybe.
interesting to you, and that's what internship should be. This is, a connection for you, and there might be a few other people who would have connected with, but there are a bunch of other people who would have loved to have learned how to do small engine repair, culinary arts, maybe banking. It has to be something that you think you might have a passion for, because then it's real. Then it's something you really invest everything you have in.
Yeah, definitely. Everyone has their own niche. So I think, it's really important for the school to try as best as they can to tailor courses and the internships that they offer to each student, and give everyone the same opportunity to try as many things as they can in high school, because that's what it's all about.
But getting back to what you said before, fitting that in is tough. You did it over the summer. Now it's going to be tougher, as we even talked about doing it on Saturdays and Sundays, because you won't be able to fit it into your week. And we'll figure that out, but it's hard. It's hard.
I don't know how you'd fit it into a period in the day. Maybe it'd be like an after school instead of sports kind of
Right.
deal.
It would have
because
to be
travel
a,
time, especially
like an
some-
early release thing, you know, like, one of the things we had talked about while we were paddling around yesterday was getting the science research program at the end of the day, so that you could, as part of your science research program, do this research. But that's hard, you know, you've done the high school schedule more times than you want to remember. That's a very difficult task to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many push and pull factors that happen just trying to do that, and then, you know, to take into account every little piece of it, you know, and we wouldn't want to see a student have to make that trade-off, or I'm going to drop AP Calculus because of this. And,
Right.
But we also want the kid to make the choice that is best suited for their learning. You know, whenever we can find those opportunities to meet a kid's intrinsically motivated, you know,
Right,
goals,
right.
we know we've hit a jackpot, because that the kids want to do it, the students want to do it, and it's ever a moving target, and, you know, we're always going for it, and we can never stop. But
Right.
you know, if we get a couple right, that's okay, you know, but getting as many right as often as possible is always the goal. So always open for suggestions on how to do that. And
Yeah.
this year, the end of the year, research might be a way to do it. Next year, maybe for an automotive program, and we've done that. We've put the program at the end of the day so that they take the late bus home, because they're really, you know, excited that they're in the middle of their project. And some of our high, you know, achieving art students, we put that class at the end of the day. So, you know, in a 45-minute period, you're just getting rolling on this, you know, this vase that you're making, or this painting you're doing in the art class. Like, oh, you got to clean up because the bell's going to ring. We don't want that. It's hard to bake a cake in 40 minutes and
Yes.
clean up the kitchen for sure. You know, so those things, and you know, we look at different opportunities. Currently our culinary program that we're expanding this year is a 2-period session that gives kids 80 minutes, you know, versus 40 minutes to bake the cake. They're probably not icing it in that same period,
You can
but
get the yeast to rise in that. You can do some
yeah,
breads. You
and,
can do, you know.
that's another opportunity, you know, we've looked at, is, you know, the blocking of periods, and, you know, that comes at, you know, challenges unto itself. But any opportunities that, you know, anyone at home has or thinks about this, you know, I know at the high school level, Sarah Smith is always welcome to hear these things. You know, Charlie Soriano at the middle school, and, you know, it's hard to put an elementary kid in an intern situation, but engaging them and keeping them till they have this maybe direction they want to go into. And you know, any suggestion, each every one of you at home have, you know, please, you know, our doors are open. I mean, you support us, we want to support your kids, and you know, see not just the research-based ones, but kids that want to do those programs.
Right. Because I got to believe that an employer would be thoroughly impressed with someone who already had some experience in the field. So someone who's coming out of high school and looking right to get into a career and could say, oh, I did that already. I've learned how to do that. I can come in ready to work. That has to be a huge plus in getting employment.
Yeah, I mean, we've discussed this, you and I. I mean, you can study, you know, plumbing, and you can study, you know, HVAC and the like, and you may know how they all work, but the book smarts and that is one thing, but getting into that crawl space changes that story for some folks. And I know colleagues, friends, you know, that I've known over the years are like, you know, sometimes the kids or the new employee is going to go into that crawl space that they never wanted to go into, or they're going to be cleaning the pots in the kitchen, even if they're, you know, coming from a culinary background. You know, those type of experiences make the employee get it, because it's A to Z. It's not just.
Think about teaching. I don't know any first-year teacher who felt that their college education really prepared them for what that first year was like.
I just finished. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard.
We've had new teacher meetings, and these are trained peoples as well, and we're finishing them right now, and just giving them that classroom time, giving them, you know, the students. We had some of our student association members, you know, meet with our new teachers today and say, here's what we like about East Hampton. Here's some things we'd like to see, you know, you all do, and those type of things. Interning, they're no longer interns. These new hires, they're hired teachers. So. come September 6th, they have live students in front of them.
And it's the first time that they're going to learn.
Some of them, sure.
They're going to be learning by making mistakes, which is, in your internship experience, have you made mistakes and said, oh, gee, what was I doing? And having...
Yeah, all the time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I forgot to we went to the hatchery like last week and the door was locked, so we couldn't
Yeah.
ever measure the growth of our spat. Like it
Learning
happens all the time.
responsibility, bringing water shoes, little things like
Right.
that you don't expect,
Yeah.
but it's definitely preparing you for the real world. And just to circle back to ideas on how we could promote more internships in the high school, this may be a bit ambitious, maybe a couple years down the line, but didn't you guys attempt a block schedule at one point where half the classes are one day, half the classes are another day, and then perhaps you could fit more amounts of time for that internship if you do it that way?
It's a tricky, slippery slope, but yes, we've looked at a lot of options and how we can do that, and we are still looking at it. It changes
I've
things.
been bugging Mr. Fromm about that since
I taught in
since
a
I got
block.
here.
Yeah, my first year's teaching was in a block, and it was intimidating growing up in an environment where it was just 40 minutes. And it requires, a couple different shifts in a couple different ways.
I also taught in a block in the city and loved it. But it's very hard to shift the whole high school system.
Yeah.
And it's I'm looking at it because I've done it, and I know it's better. And I think teachers would love it once they tried it. Every teacher who tried it with me, I was the only one who wanted to. Everybody else was like, oh, I'm never going back to 40-minute periods. And I think that's most teachers' experience when they've made the shift. But throwing the structure of everything you know to the side and trying something new is very scary in education. I do think it's something we have to continually push for. I think it will allow much more flexibility for things like internships, but just deeper
Experiential
learning.
education.
Experiential education. Then you can do experiential education in the classroom. The traditional rows and seats don't have to be the framework all the time.
Yeah. I know I've experienced this, I'm sure Nick has too. Even when we're doing hands-on lab in the classroom, there's rarely enough time. So you have to split it between a couple of days, like start a
Yeah.
test one day, go home, study a little bit more, take the second half. It's tricky, and I think not only would definitely the internships benefit that side of things, but I think even the generic types of classes would benefit.
Yeah, well, you think how much time you spend at the beginning of every class and the end of every class, getting started and getting finished, okay? You lose that. You know, you only do it once for 2 periods. So there's already 15, 20 minutes of instructional time gained. There are a lot of benefits to it. I'm a big proponent and always have been. Curious, when you do your college essay?
I'm working on it now.
And you get some time?
Yeah,
You got some time.
Don't stress about it.
Yeah, please, no.
Next year.
What are you writing about?
Community, my love for surrounding myself with genuine people, and how when I go to college, I hope to create that sense of community for myself and for others.
All right. And I think that fits in with some of the learning that happened during the internship.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Met a lot of new people.
Yeah, did you guys know each other before? I'm sure you knew each other, but did
Sort
you,
of.
Knew each
knew
other, but now I'd consider us pretty good friends.
Yeah.
I think
Alright.
the same, yeah.
even though he's, it's only a junior?
I know, I hitch a ride with you like every night.
Yeah, maybe he uses me for transportation.
Well, we're just about out of time. Let me finish by thanking all of you for being here. I've enjoyed the conversation. I hope you have. And I'd like to thank the East Hampton Education Foundation for their continued support of this series. They provide scholarships and grants to all of our East Hampton schools since 2005. Thank you.